Good morning. Thank you for coming today. We're going to get started if folks can get ready. Pleasure to have you guys here today. We're going to have two great speakers and we'll just get started. We are going to start with first up. We have President and White House Infrastructure Coordinator Mitch Landrieu is going to kick us off with some remarks about this bridge announcement we have today.
Great. Thank you, Danny, and thank all of you for coming. I'm thrilled to be here with Stephanie, who runs the Federal Highway Administration. And although the Secretary could not be with us, all of you know he's following CDC guidelines and has been working every day. And I'm thrilled to stand here on behalf of President Biden and Secretary Buttigieg, and of course all the fantastic folks and our team members that are working for the Department of Transportation and Development. As all of you know, the President was able to, with bipartisan support, pass a historic, once-in-a-generation, $1.2 trillion infrastructure bill. This country has a lot of challenges, but most everybody in this country agrees that the best way to come together is to rebuild our country. And we can't think of a better way to do it than rebuilding bridges, which is what we're here for today. But in the last 6 months, our team has hit the ground running. We have pushed out $110 billion in funding for roads and bridges and airports and ports and waterways, building high-speed internet, 500,000 electrical vehicle charging stations, and we're working on building a clean energy economy. But the Department of Transportation and Development has been really pushing really hard on their portion of the bill, and one of them, of course, is the construction of bridges. Not too long ago, the President announced that there is a $40 billion slice of change in this $1.2 trillion bill to rebuild the bridges that are in poor repair across the country. The first announcement was $27.5 billion to build and to repair and to fix over 15,000 what they call off-system bridges. These are bridges that are not connected to the interstate system. But there's another portion of that money, and that's what we're here to talk about today, $12.5 billion for bridges that are economically and regionally significant, that have a lot to do not only with transportation and the economy, but moving people to and from work, to and from home, and to and from everywhere that people want to go sooner rather than later. Everybody in this country knows what it's like to ride on a bad road, or to get stuck in traffic, or to have to pick up your kids and have trouble getting there, or to try to get to work and not get there on time. It increases cost, and it takes the one thing away from American citizens that we all value the most, which is our time. But this particular portion of the bill is designed to do a couple of things: big bridges, medium-sized bridges, and small bridges that are economically significant. It is a competitive program. It is going to be run by the Federal Highway Administration, and you are running that effort. And when it's over, one of the things it's going to do is it's going to lower costs. It's going to make everything go faster. It's going to create a lot more convenience. And it's going to do what is so obvious, which is to make it safe to get from one place to the other. This could not be more important. Those of you remember that the President traveled to Pittsburgh not too long ago, and right before he lifted off, a bridge actually collapsed in Pittsburgh, and it was an unbelievably scary sight. I was there that day. You could look down 100 feet into the gully. There were cars that were on the bridge. Thank God that nobody was killed. But for a miracle of a snowstorm that happened the night before and school getting delayed, there would have been many American citizens, including a lot of kids, on that bridge. The Minneapolis bridge collapsed many years ago that you will remember. And I don't think I have to give you more examples of why this particular program today is so critically important. President Biden saw that. He said that if you elected him president, he would use the power of the presidency to unite this country. He's doing so by passing this infrastructure bill, and we're in the business of getting things done. But let me hand it over to the person who's actually responsible for making it happen. Stephanie, come on up.
Thank you, Mitch, and it's an honor to be here this morning. And the partnership between Federal Highway, the Department of Transportation, and the White House in delivering for the American people is really an honor to be part of. So thank you, everyone, for joining us today. Thank you to Mitch for his steadfast partnership on not just this, but all the other projects that we've been working on together. So it may seem odd that we're announcing a new program to revitalize our crumbling bridge infrastructure alongside the Frederick Douglass Memorial Bridge, which is a beautiful new bridge whose concrete sidewalks have barely dried. But this replacement bridge represents exactly the work we can do through the Bridge Investment Program. Across the country, there are bridges just like the 71-year-old structure that used to stand here just a year ago and has been replaced. That spirit of revitalization is in keeping with this iconic new bridge that is not only improving the daily commutes of people living in the Washington, D.C. metropolitan area, but connecting communities and tying the city together. And that's why we're here today. Bridges connect people and places and so represent in physical form the way that good infrastructure connects people and places to each other and to prosperity and opportunity. When bridges are modern, well-maintained, and safe for everyone using them, they are literally the connective tissue for our highway and street networks. But too many bridges are no longer in good condition or are outdated and not as safe as they need to be for the people who drive, walk, or bike over them. As Mitch laid out, there are more than 45,000 bridges across the country in poor condition and more at risk of falling into poor condition. There are bridges across the nation that have been closed because their owners, often towns, cities, counties, or tribes, lack the resources to fix them, forcing cars and trucks and pedestrians into detours that in rural areas may take travelers many miles out of their way. And there are more than 71,000 bridges over which travel is restricted, what we call weight posted, because they are no longer safe for heavier vehicles that may include transit or school buses or fire trucks or even ambulances. Bridges that are closed or restricted aren't just entries in Federal Highway's National Bridge Inventory. They're an everyday hassle for commuters or a longer trip to school or the doctor's office. They delay our first responders to providing emergency care. And like poor condition roads, poor condition bridges contribute to real and higher costs in both time and dollars for many American families. Americans may have trouble agreeing on the basics these days, but there is no question we need to fix our bridges. That's why today the U.S. Department of Transportation's Federal Highway Administration is launching the Bridge Investment Program, made possible by President Biden's bipartisan infrastructure law. Reflecting the president's commitment to rebuilding our nation's infrastructure, the Bridge Investment Program will make $12.5 billion in competitive grants available over the next 5 years. These grants will repair and rebuild enormous nationally significant bridges, smaller local bridges, and every kind of bridge in between. The program officially opens today with the publication of a Notice of Funding Opportunity in grants.gov that makes available $2.3 billion in fiscal year 2022. The $12.5 billion Bridge Investment Program complements and adds to the more than $27 billion provided to states by the Bridge Formula Program that was announced earlier this year. Alone, the Bridge Formula Program represents the single largest dedicated bridge investment since the construction of the interstate highway system. But this administration understands the diverse infrastructure needs of our nation, and bridges are no exception. That's why the Department of Transportation has paired the Bridge Investment Program, a competitive grant that is accessible to every level of government, with the Bridge Formula Program, which provides funding directly to state transportation departments. Together, these two funding approaches can deliver funding at every level of government, from municipal planning departments to state transportation departments. And together, they can deliver funding for every kind of bridge, from smaller off-system bridges that are locally or regionally important to the movement of people and goods, to signature bridge projects that are of national significance but are just too expensive for any single state or even for two states to build solely with their formula funding. As is clear to anyone who has had to travel over the predecessor to the beautiful bridge that we're standing in front of today, or over bridges in equally bad condition across this country of ours, those dollars in investment tools were long overdue. So, over the next 5 years, the Bridge Investment Program will help repair bridges in every state, including some of the most economically significant bridges in the nation. At the same time, the program will make it easier to repair smaller and medium-sized local bridges by creating opportunity for all levels of government to be direct recipients of program funds, including metropolitan planning organizations and local and tribal governments. But let me bring this back to what matters the most: how these bridges impact the daily lives of people in communities across our country. With an investment of this size and scale, we are not only fixing America's bridges, but in doing so, we are making a difference for commerce, communities, and families. Fixing bridges brings down the cost of goods for American consumers, improves response times for our first responders, and gets our loved ones home for dinner safely and on time. President Biden's bipartisan infrastructure law has made it possible for our nation to begin the generational modernization of our infrastructure and make long-delayed investments that will serve to bolster our economic security and prosperity for decades to come. Because of these historic investments, including the $12.5 billion in grants that will be made available under the Bridge Investment Program, we are now in a much stronger position to help build the transportation future that the American people need and deserve. Thank you for joining us today. We look forward to taking any questions.
Thank you, Stephanie.
Thank you, Mitch. Any questions?
You did a perfect job.
And so did you.